What's up, all my Ewoks, triples, and droids? It's Anna, also known as that Star Wars girl, and today I'm going to be talking about Star Trek Picard. Now, a few weeks ago, I was editing my episode 6 review, and I got about 20 minutes into editing and collecting all my photos, because the way I decided to start doing reviews was including screenshots and images from the episodes, so that way there would be visuals for each scene, so that way everyone could see what it was I was talking about, and it would give a little bit more background to the context of what I was talking about for the scene, so that way everyone got a better understanding and grasp of what was going on in the show. And then, I got 20 minutes in and I said, why the hell am I doing this? This is terrible. And I was like, you know what? Gotta push through, gotta do a little bit more. So I spent another hour. And I realized I hate this. I absolutely hate this. I'm putting all of this time into making a review of something that I can't stand, and it's not worth it. It's really not. I'm giving these people way too much time out of my life, and they honestly don't deserve it. When it's people that are making a show and just completely disrespecting and disregarding everything that made Star Trek special, everything that, made these characters so relatable and so iconic, they don't care about it. And they've been very blatant about that on social media. And it's not worth my time. I'm not going to do any more reviews on it, but I am going to continue to talk about it to point out certain things that they have been doing that I think is just complete blasphemy for Star Trek. And I love Star Trek, and I will defend Star Trek until the day I die. Now, obviously my channel is known as that Star Wars girl. Star Wars came into my life and it changed me. It changed who I was as a person, because when I saw Luke Skywalker look at the binary sunset, he was just a boy on a farm that dreamed of so much, and he had this whole galaxy, at his fingertips, and it was just in that moment where it was the first time I saw something that spoke to my soul. And I was a very, very young child when I saw that, and it touched me inside, and ever since then, I've never been the same. I always aspired to reach for the stars like Luke Skywalker did. And if Luke Skywalker can go from just being a farm boy on, in the middle of nowhere, in, a planet no one cares about, except for, if you're a gangster, and he became a Jedi, and he saved the galaxy from this evil empire. If just a small farm boy from Tatooine can do that, then, anything is possible. And, that touched me and, touched my heart, and it changed who I was as a person. And it made me believe that anything is possible. Do or do not, there is no try. And so you either can do it, you can make something of yourself like Luke Skywalker did, or you don't. And it motivated me to do something with my life, and, because coming from a small town in the middle of nowhere and just growing up on a farm, it's, you live within that bubble. And I didn't want to be stuck in that bubble. I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. I wanted to adventure out into the galaxy and change it for the better, and, be a Jedi like Luke Skywalker. And, that motivated me to be the best that I could possibly be. And, that's why when people say, oh, that's Star Wars girl, but you talk about other things that aren't just Star Wars. Yes, of course I talk about other things that aren't just Star Wars, because there are other things that I love that aren't just Star Wars, but Star Wars is in my heart and soul. Excuse me. I got teased a lot when I was a kid because of my love for Star Wars, because I would bring action figures with me to school, because I would wear Star Wars t-shirts, and it was that Star Wars girl. I was always called that weird Star Wars girl, and it was a name that was used to hurt me, and I've embraced it because I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be that weird Star Wars girl. And something that, I think I need to clarify is that I love Star Trek as well. Star Trek has a very dear place in my heart for quite the same reasons as Star Wars does, but Star Trek came into my life later. And I was told, as a kid, if you love Star Wars, you can't love Star Trek. And so I was very passionate about that, but I love my father. My father is, a very special person to me, and, he's my favorite person in the entire world. And so My father loves Star Trek, and if you've ever seen my father laugh and smile, it's so infectious, and it's my favorite thing. And so when my dad talks about Star Trek, he gets so animated and so excited about it, and it makes me happy. And when somebody is that, infectious with their joy, you want to be part of it. And so I got into Star Trek because it was another thing that I could share with my father. And it was something that we have in common, and it's something, we still have in common to this day. And so when I was watching Star Trek, I love stories that are about friendship. Those will always be my favorite. And it's when I was watching Star Trek, I watched the original series first. I saw Captain Kirk and his friendship with Spock, and how he has he has friendships with Spock, Scotty, McCoy. They're all very different types of friendships, but in a way, it's like it gets you. And Captain Kirk, even though he was a bit of a loose cannon, he was still, at the end of the day, Captain Kirk. He had that loyalty to his friends. He's never going to abandon his friends. He's always going to come back to save them. Even, we saw what happened with Spock, and, that I can't watch The Wrath of Khan without bawling, because it gets you in the feels. And, Captain Kirk, he taught me that. He showed me that it's okay to be loyal, and that, having that kind of love and dedication for something, even if it is inanimate, because it's special to you, that's okay. And, it taught me that. And there was a lot in Star Trek that, it taught me things about how Star Trek has always had, politics in it, but they did it in a way, a way of using these themes within their storytelling to tell a story. The episode where they, talk about racism, they never say the word racism in it. They never, try to shove down your throat that it's, during the 60s when it was made, that, everything that was going on during that time period, but they showed it with the aliens. Captain Kirk and Spock, they looked exactly the same. They were black on one side and white on the other. But then, the one alien was like, no, he's beneath me. Can't you tell? He's black on that side and I'm black on this side. And they're like, you look exactly the same. He's like, no, he's an inferior being to me. And that was the kind of a plot device that they used to explain racism. And as a kid watching that, it taught me that. And I was like, I liked the way that they handled certain things. And they did that in every episode. There's a lesson to be learned. And so the fact that now with Star Trek Picard, they're disregarding everything that made it special. They're just shoving things down your throat, whereas they're not even acknowledging what the real meaning of Trek was, about how you can push these themes into things as long as you are telling a story with it. And yes, this is very unlike any Star Trek that came before it, because obviously it's in my opinion, it's not Star Trek, but they're not even doing it episode by episode, because it's where there's a different story through every episode, and maybe there's a few episodes within a season that are really plot moving as far as what's going on within the Federation, as compared to just mission episodes. But even in the Next Generation, because the Star Trek Picard, it's called Picard, but it's not about Picard. It's not, and they're disrespecting a man that even though I know he's not technically a real person, but when I watched The Next Generation, I was a little bit older, and because the way that I watched Star Trek was I watched the original series, then I watched Enterprise, then I watched The Next Generation, then I watched Voyager, then I watched DS9. So I was a little bit older when I watched it, and I was going through that phase where it's like, just starting to become a teenager, you hate everything, you want to be a rebel, you don't agree with your parents, everything is the worst thing in the entire world, and you have all these problems, you're putting on your emo makeup, you're listening to Screamo, and, Simple Plan, and Linkin Park, and 3 Days Grace, and you're like, everything in life is terrible, the world is just against me, kind of thing. And so, you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I have a bit of an anger problem, and it's something that I've always tried to work on, but I have a temper, especially when it's things that I care about, and I wouldn't get so upset if I didn't care about it. And that's one thing that you'll know about me, is that when if I don't have really an opinion on it about it, it's because it's not something that I truly care about. And so when it is something I truly care about, I'm very, very passionate about the things that I care about. And so my channel kind of, started because I was so upset about what they did with Star Wars and what they did with Luke Skywalker. And to see what they're doing with Picard, because everything that I care about is because it helped me and taught me something in my life. Jean-Luc Picard taught me that even in a situation when you want to be angry, where you have every single right to be angry, you have to be diplomatic, because that's the only way that you will come out on top and stay true to yourself. And, because everyone gets angry. Everyone has those days where their anger gets the better of them and they snap. And you could be the best person in the world, but even the best person in the world has those days. And sometimes, you think back after you've gotten angry, after you've snapped, and it's like, oh, why did I do that? You have that regret. And if you're living your entire life in regret, what kind of life is that to live? And Captain Jean-Luc Picard, he taught me that. He showed me what discipline was. He showed me how to handle situations like that, how to be diplomatic. And me as a very, I wouldn't say an argumentative person. I'm just a passionate person. And if I believe in something, if I know about what I'm talking about, and, somebody is saying if somebody was trying to say that Spock was a Romulan and not a Vulcan, no, I know for a fact that that's wrong. I'm going to fight for what's right. And that's just, I can't sleep at night. I can't live with myself if I don't. And maybe it's a personality flaw within myself. I don't know. I personally think it's a strength, and I've, come to terms with that over time. But Captain Picard, he taught me to fight for what you believe in and to fight for what's right. And you don't have to, let your anger get the better of you, even though, we have seen points where Captain Picard does, but he was always the diplomat. And he taught me how to be diplomatic in a way that no one else could, because he came, Star Trek The Next Generation came at a time in my life when I wasn't listening to anyone, where, even if my parents told me, Anna, don't do that, I wanted to do the exact opposite, because, I was I think I was like a preteen teenager, that little weird age. And so it came at a very important time in my life, and it taught me that. And so I have this real love for Star Trek and for these characters, and each show, they hold a special place in my heart because they each taught me something, and all of it was about how to make yourself a better person, how to be the best you that you could possibly be. And so watching this show and watching everything that they are doing, it's blatantly obvious that these people, they just don't care. They wanted to use this IP because it was an already established brand that they knew that they could make money off of, that they had an established fan base, a dedicated fan base that will go and that will watch it, that will buy the things for it, that will go to the conventions, even though I haven't seen any merch for Picard yet. And they had to do the 25% difference type of thing, so that way they could make merchandise for it. It's just done with so little care and so little research. Like, just the fact that Romulus blew up, the Romulan Empire is destroyed, and for some reason you have Romulans sitting on a planet for 14 years doing nothing, but at the same time you have the Tal Shiar that's still operating. Then you have this thing called the Zhat Vash, which apparently is just a bunch of sadistic women that like to look into the future and not take the time to understand what it meant, but just take it at face value and decide to put their entire base of operation invested in that. It's conflicting. It doesn't make sense. Why would you still have the Tal Shiar? And the Tal Shiar's goal is to protect and better the Romulan Empire, and don't care about who they hurt in the doing of such. They don't care about lying to get the information they want. They will go and they spy on you, and they will pretend to be a Vulcan for decades, and then come once they get back to the neutral zone for diplomatic reasons, reveal themselves as, oh, we were actually that person that was in Vulcan pretending to be a Vulcan for decades. It was actually a Romulan agent, a Romulan spy. They are that dedicated to the better of Romulus, to get as much information as possible, so that way they can, have the upper hand on every situation because they want to expand their empire. They are that type of ambitious beings. And to tell me that they just sat there for decades not doing anything, while as some of other ones are still in these secret societies and in these secret intelligence operations. And for some reason, again, you have Romulans doing nothing on a planet, but then they also have the only Borg cube in, I guess, the Beta/Alpha quadrant, and they are in complete control when they don't even have an empire, and the Federation can come at any point and take it, except in this latest episode we just found out that, they apparently have at least minimum over 200 ships, over 200 warbirds, and they're coming to the android planet, because in this episode they go to the android planet, and it's like Picard didn't even need to be in this. The show didn't need to be about Picard. They could have called it Star Trek The New Generation, something like that. It didn't have to have Picard, but they wanted to use Patrick Stewart because of his name, because it was Captain Jean-Luc Picard coming back, but all they did was disrespect his character, completely disregard everything that came before him. They have a woman cussing at him, telling him to shut the fuck up every time she's around him. Sheer fucking hubris. And in this last episode, I watched a woman tell Captain Jean-Luc Picard, being civil, contacting her, saying, hey, you wouldn't allow me a ship. I had to go and use my own money and my own means to go, track this girl down, prove all of the things that I told you originally were true and right. I have all of the evidence. What does she tell him? Shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me? You're just going to blatantly disrespect Captain Jean-Luc Picard like that and just use him as a plot device? And then Soji, all of a sudden, she got activated, so now she's getting memories left and right. And they could have started off the entire show with this episode. Opens up a conduit in space, which is used by the Borg, so they at least watched the last episode of Voyager to get this information that these things exist. They go through it. Flowers come out from the planet, the planet's protective systems, and these flowers suck the ship in, crash it on the planet. No one gets injured at all from this experience, from crash landing on a planet. You're from outer space, going through the atmosphere, did not burn up and die, crash on the planet. No one has a freaking scratch. Walk on the planet because the Borg cube followed them with 7 of 9 and Elnor. Nobody died in that. Nobody was injured there. They go to the colony of androids, and guess who's there? Brent Spiner. He's not Data. He's not Lore. He is Dr. Noonien Soon's son, his biological son that was always left in the shadows because he was proud of Data. And you get like a two-line excuse for why he exists. Captain Jean-Luc Picard is in shock, just as I was, because I was like, all right, you have this colony of, some of them are good, but very easily manipulated androids that have emotion, that are, evil. You find out because you see that Soji, apparently there's at least 4 of Soji. It was her and Daj, who look like humans. They have the coloring of humans. And then there's Sutra, and I think the other one was named, I'm blanking. It was Dinah or something like that. All the holograms were saying her names, and they had different accents, so I didn't have my subtitles on for that portion. So she died, so it's not really too important like any of this plot is. But you have the evil femme fatale because they make her look sexy. It's like Data and Pocahontas had a baby, which equals Sutra, like Kama Sutra, and just to very much insist, this is our sexy evil android character. And I'm like, it would make so much sense if Jean-Luc Picard got to this planet, these people, they got to the planet, and it's Lore. And Lore's been on this planet creating androids and, plotting to take over the entire galaxy with his army of evil androids. That would make a lot of sense, but no. Instead, it's Brent Spiner being Dr. Noonien Soon's son, his biological son, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, again, they never watched the show. They went on Netflix, they scrolled through, they found a sentence here, a sentence there, and they said, that sounds good. So they don't know that Dr. Noonien Soon's wife died. And he remade her into an android, and Data didn't even realize that she was an android. The tricorders didn't even realize that she was an android. The only reason Data was able to discover that she was an android was because they were practicing their music together, and then they performed in a concert, and Data registered the fact that there was absolutely no nuances. Her performance was identical to when they practiced, and he said that that is completely impossible for a human to have not even one fluctuation in the way that they play a musical instrument. And that's how he discovered that she was an android. And she had no knowledge of the fact that she was an android, because Dr. Noonien soon built her because his wife got killed by the crystalline entity. And so he made his wife again, so that because he loved her and he didn't, want to live without her. And then, yes, they went their separate ways. And, he even had, a biological clock, so that way she would eventually die. She's not going to live the way that Data and Lore did. So the fact that he has a son that is the age that he is, it doesn't make sense as far as the timeline is as when his wife would have passed away. And even then, what if, he would have never mentioned it. He wouldn't have told Data and Lore, hey, I have this son that, is a scientist too, that specializes in exactly what I do. In the episode where he, activates Data to have Data come back to the planet so he can give him the chip that will give him some emotions. And he didn't know that Lore was reassembled, and Lore goes back to the planet too, and Lore tricks him into thinking that he's Data, and he gets the emotions chip and Data doesn't. You would have thought that when he was saying, hey guys, I reactivated you to come back here, the tracking beacon, so you would come back to me, and because I'm dying and I don't have time to make two, for you, Lore, so I only have this one, which is for Data, which I made for Data, and I wish I had more time. You would have thought that would have been a really convenient time for him to tell his sons that, hey, by the way, I have another biological son that is a scientist just like me, that does exactly what I do, that I could have been working with him the entire fucking time and could have taught him everything that I know, so that way he can continue to give improvements to Lore and Data that can continue to do his work. He even told Data, I would have hoped that you would have gone into the same science that I did. And he told Data that right before he died, that he was hoping that. And he asked Data, why did you go into Starfleet? And it's just things like that. They never watched it. And then I go see people like Michael Chabon. Michael Chabon is one of the writers on the show. He has an Instagram account. On Instagram, you can do these special things on your story called questions. I do it every single month because I do my Q&A videos. And he's even explicitly said, if you have any questions that are negative and you're being disrespectful, he used a lot worse terms than that. He's like, I'm not going to answer them. They're going to ignore them. And every question that was a valid question for him to answer about, plot holes, he's like, somebody's like, oh, well, why did you do this? He's like, well, why wouldn't I do this? And it's like, why do you have to be a self-righteous, pompous asshole? Just answer the question. If you weren't smart enough to think your story through and write this without plot holes, but you're going to get mad at your fan base for asking you very reasonable questions, and you're going to turn it around and make them feel stupid because you couldn't write a decent story in the first place, what the fuck is wrong with you? If you don't like Star Trek, if you don't care enough to go watch the show that you're going to write about before you write it, why should anyone give you the time of day and give you the respect that you feel like you're entitled to if you can't even respect the IP that you're writing for? If you don't like Star Trek, if you don't care enough to watch it before you go and write it and do a show about it, and you can't take the criticism because it's very blatantly obvious that you didn't watch it, then why the hell are you writing Star Trek? You have all of these prizes, like a Hugo Award, all of these for all of your novels that you've written. Why don't you do something like that instead of fucking up a show that has been around for decades, or this IP that's been around for decades with these characters that people are invested in, people invested their lives in this? Why would you, if you don't care about it, why are you working on it? Why would you go out of your way to destroy something? And then you create this, which has so many plot holes and so many inconsistencies, not only within the lore, but within the characters and just within the entire universe of Star Trek. Why would you do that and then get upset at people because they say, hey, if you just simply watch this, you would know that that doesn't work. And he's like, well, we're doing this, this, and this. And, making excuses, making very passive-aggressive remarks that people, he put the question thing out there and then he doesn't even like the questions that he's getting. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And so you're telling me that I'm supposed to sit here and take it. I'm supposed to sit here and believe that Dr. Noonien Soon had a biological son that does exactly what he does, that is creating all of these androids that worked with Bruce Maddox, and all of a sudden Bruce Maddox is like the Jesus of androids, and he was there to be their savior, and the fact that Agnes killed him, and now all of a sudden she regrets it. It's like, if you really loved him, you wouldn't have killed him. You would have waited to see how things unfolded, and maybe because he didn't know that you were plotting to kill him, or that you had that in your head the whole time, that you could have, killed him at the last minute when he revealed himself as evil. Because when you really love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt and things like that, especially if you know them as a human being and somebody's telling you that they're evil and that they're going to help create all these androids, but you know who they are. Because I'm assuming if you love someone, you know who they are, you know their deepest, darkest secrets, you would know if they're capable of doing these horrific things or not. And so the fact that she killed him, it's like, how stupid do you think I am? How stupid do you think your fan base are that we're going to fall for this shit? It's not working. If you can't take criticism for the fact that you are destroying these characters, and that even your new characters are so inconsistent, it doesn't make any sense. And now you introduce this android colony that looks like the cult from have you ever watched these historical kind of historical fiction movies? They came out with one that was the 70s, and they did the 60s. The cult from that movie, which was the 70s, and they're all androids. You got the one that looks like Data and Pocahontas had a baby, which is Soji, but Sutra, and she's telling Jean-Luc Picard that, oh, you guys are all evil because this one android got killed because a Romulan tricked her and killed her and then fled. You guys had him in your captivity. You knew that he was dangerous. You knew he was there because he is Zhat Vash, and he is here to make sure that all of the androids die, and you left him underneath the supervision of the dumbest android that you guys had, the most ignorant. She had the mind of a child, basically, the way that she interacted with people. You left him under the supervision of her? Are you kidding me? You have no one to blame but yourselves. The fact that she died and the fact that you didn't supervise your prisoner correctly. But no, all of a sudden, Sutra, Miss Pocahontas Data herself, is saying, no, we actually need to go and destroy all organic life forms. Oh, even though Dr. Noonien Soon's son is a human and is organic, and he is okay. Jean-Luc Picard, even though all he's done is try to help us, we are going to kill him. We are going to kill all of the organics in the galaxy and fulfill this prophecy. And all of a sudden, Soji's is like, no, it makes sense. I need to stay true to my other androids and this, and this. Oh yeah, and they even shoehorned. They ripped off Star Wars. They had him. They had the Romulan Twilight dude, the one that killed the android that escaped. They had him behind the force field in the little jail cell. He says, I love you, and she says, I know. And they did the swap, but I'm like, really? Out of all of the most iconic love scenes to rip off, you rip off that and you do it like that? That was a very special moment within Star Wars when Han Solo is there. He's about to be frozen in carbonite. There is a chance that he is going to die because they have never tested it on a living human before, on organic tissue before. And Leia, after denying it the entire movie that she has feelings for Han Solo, she finally comes to terms with her feelings and she says, I love you. And he says, I know, because he's known the entire time how she feels about him. He's been saying it since the beginning of the movie. And he was finally able to help her come to terms with her feelings because she had to suppress them because it was in a time of war, and she felt like she couldn't let herself feel like that because she had a job to do. You're gonna take and rip off that iconic moment in Star Wars that meant so much to so many people, and you are going to just shoehorn it in to this episode because you know that people have that emotional connection to that, and you're trying to, use that and manipulate it, and to manipulate your audience into getting an emotional reaction for that, when all it did was backfire because you stole something that meant so much to so many people, and then you put it in this shit show. You put it with shit characters that mean absolutely nothing to no one, and you use that iconic line to try to manipulate us. Well, fuck you. Why the fuck would you think that that was gonna work? Because the only thing that shows me is how stupid these people are that are doing Star Trek. And now 7 of 9 is going to be the savior of the Borg. Elnor is gonna go with her. Captain Jean-Luc Picard is a prisoner to the evil androids, to Data and Pocahontas' daughter, and Lore is just nowhere to be found, even though it would make perfect sense why these evil androids live in this cult-like community, and if they're evil because Lore made them. That would have made a lot of sense if they actually watched the show. It was a lot like the episode where Lore got all of those Borg, and Lore figured out how to manipulate the Borg and had that cult-like mentality. When you watch the About section of, the little special edition of that episode, you can see how the people that wrote it and directed it were talking about how they were trying to show what cult and hive mindset is like, and Lore did that. They did the parallel like that, but they didn't watch the freaking episode to see how it was done right and how it was done by Lore. If they would have if you're gonna bring Brent Spiner back, have him be fucking Lore. Don't have him have this character that doesn't make any fucking sense why he exists, why Dr. Noonien Singh would never have mentioned him. It doesn't make any sense. All the show is a blatant disrespect of everything that came before it, and it's fundamentally wrong, and the people that are doing it, they just don't care. And they're blatantly honest about it on social media of how much they don't care. So I don't want to review this show anymore. I'm gonna watch this next episode just to see what the fuck happens, but any videos you're going to see from me about Star Trek Picard are just going to be like this. Just me giving my opinion and my 2 cents on it. Because I love these characters. And I'm going to fight for these characters because they don't deserve this kind of treatment. It's insulting and it's fundamentally wrong. The fact that these people put so much love and heart into creating these characters and portraying these characters, and they're disrespected so blatantly in this show. It hurts me. It hurts me in my heart. And I believe in standing up and fighting for what you believe in, and this is wrong. It is so wrong on so many levels, and I'm going to defend it, and I'm going to continue to defend what Star Trek was and who these people were, because they do not deserve to be treated like this. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video, and, if you love Star Trek, if you love these characters too, I encourage you to continue to stand up for them and defend them for what they were, because nobody deserves to be treated like this. Nobody's vision, nobody's, legacy deserves to be tarnished and dragged through the mud like this. It's fundamentally wrong on every single level, and it disgusts me. So if you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, that's okay too. You don't have to watch it, but thank you for watching this far through. And until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you, because we are really, 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 really going to need it. Bye, everyone. What's up, everyone? It's Anna, also known as That Star Wars Girl, and I have an Etsy store, so if you've ever wanted to own a print of my artwork, this is the place to go. As you can see, I have a lot of recognizable characters, from horror films to heroes to Star Wars characters. Some of the notable characters I have on here are Darth Vader, which I did a couple live streams painting, so you can own a print of this painting. I also have Luke Skywalker, the Binary Sunset version, one of my favorite scenes in the original New Hope movie. I have Darth Maul, which Ray Parks himself actually complimented me on Instagram. And then last but certainly not least, Ahsoka Tano. So if you want to own any of these prints, go right on over to my Etsy store. Again, that's The Art of Anna, That Star Wars Girl, or TSWG for short. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. What's up, everyone? I have a P.O. box, so if you want to send me some mail, go ahead and send it to Anna, That Star Wars Girl, or TSWG for short, at P.O. Box number 28171, Santa Ana, California, 927998171. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.